he was aware because there was potential.
1 second. Can we find out how he was made aware? Is this an in-person meeting, a conference call?
It was a phone call. I was in Miss Novak's office at the time when she was appraising Mr. Percy of the information.
And it was on speakerphone?
It was not on speakerphone, but how
did you hear it?
I could hear, I knew who she called. She said she was calling Doug to let him know. I sat in her office while she made the phone call.
So you only heard her side of what was said?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead with that idea, Mr. Cross.
Right. So based on her end of the conversation, you heard her inform Mr. Percy about the kitchen worker, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One second, please. Now, when you were disciplined and eventually terminated on this for the escape, did you bring up the issue of the notification of Doug Percy at any time?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you tell Internal Affairs about that?
I told Internal Affairs multiple times that Mr. Percy was well aware of the potential we were investigating with Miss Imdahl.
Okay. And do you believe that, based on your knowledge and understanding only, that whether or not Internal Affairs investigated Mr. Percy?
I'm going to object. What his belief is irrelevant here.
Do you have any reason to believe that Mr. Percy was investigated?
Other than what I seen through his questioning, through my open records request for documents from my personal investigation and seeing some of the line of questioning that was done with Mr. Percy, I don't know if his employment was investigated, but I do know that he denied being aware of it in my investigation.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you've seen documents in which the DOC has questioned Doug Percy about this escape. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's you've seen that in the course of public records requests?
Yes.
Okay, so and again, so I guess it's fair to say that after you told the Department of Corrections that you witnessed Doug Percy getting information about this kitchen employee, that you then also learned that the Department of Corrections investigated Mr. Percy, but did not discipline him, or sorry, that he denied it.
There's lacks personal knowledge here.
Okay. I'm not sure what you're going for. He's saying that to his knowledge, he was questioned.
I can back up that.
I don't know.
I got it. So the document that we're talking about, is this a Department of Corrections investigative document?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
For my investigation that surrounded my termination.
I got it.
His line of questioning was in there.
And so there's a Department of Corrections form that the Internal Affairs or whoever's doing the questioning will write down the questions and the answers on. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
And is that the form you saw?
Yes.
Okay. And in that form, did you see Doug Percy deny that he had knowledge of the escape prior to the escape?
Yes.
I'm going to object unless we have that document here that he can testify with. I just don't think it's proper. He's trying to get in information from an exhibit that hasn't been admitted.
can testify to what
Well,
he
I
read.
think it has limited use because of the fact that it isn't it's not here, so I'll let it, but I think you've got to recognize, Mr. Cross, I am not going to be relying heavily on a document I can't see that this witness is interpreting without us having any knowledge of what it is. So go ahead.
Well, we do have knowledge of what it is. And sir, do you know what the name of the form is that this document's on? Or this?
I believe the title of the document is Employee Investigation Packet or something like that. I believe the form number was or used to be DO. I'm not going to state the form number because I don't remember it, but it's an employee investigation packet.
Okay. And in that packet, you saw a question being put to Mr. Percy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And who was doing the questioning? You know.
Members of the Internal Affairs Department.
Okay. And do you recall the question that Mr. Percy was asked?
Something along the lines of becoming aware or having knowledge of potential fraternization of employee Holly Zimdahl with an inmate. And his response, I do believe, was somewhere along the lines of he did not have prior knowledge of that.
Okay. Thank you. That could be explaining it. Okay. So, and prior to the actual imposition of discipline, you were informed of charges against you, correct?
Work rule violations?
Work rule violations, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us what those work rule violations were?
I believe negligence was one of them. I would have to go back and look at the form or the letter. Honestly, it's something that I try not to think about any longer because it just
I'm
irritates me.
sorry, and I understand, but do you believe the fence was part of those work rule violations?
It was one of the things that they utilized, and I believe that was some of their explanation or the reason for the negligence was my alleged failure to report that.
And what about the kitchen worker? Do you think those were part of the work rule violations?
That I do not remember.
Okay. And now, after you were informed of the work rule violations, were you given a chance to, I think I might have said you tell your side of the story, but to explain to the ultimate decision maker, the secretary, why this discipline shouldn't be imposed?
Yeah, through the investigation process, they obviously questioned me. They came to the conclusion that I violated work rules. So then there was a pre-disciplinary hearing that was conducted where they informed me of the alleged work rule violations, where I was then able to present my rebuttal or defense against those work rule violations.
Okay.
Was that in person or was that a video conference? How was that held?
It was video.
Okay.
Who was present for that conference?
I'm sorry, who was present for that?
Who was there for the pre-hearing disciplinary?
It was myself, my staff witness or representative, John Paquin, and then two members from the Internal Affairs Department.
You don't know their names?
There was a couple different that I was questioned by throughout the investigation process. I believe one of them, Joel was his first name.
Mr. Sonnenberg, maybe?
Yes, that's it. He was, I guess, the one consistent through my investigation or my interview.
Okay. And based on your knowledge and understanding of DOC disciplinary practices, do you believe that the information that you gave at the pre-disciplinary hearing was to go to the secretary?
It was to go to whoever was going to make the decision on the discipline. I know the letter that I received, my termination letter, it was signed by Secretary Kevin Carr.
Okay. Okay. Sir, I really appreciate your testimony here today. Those are the questions that I have for you. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Cross, please.
Good morning. Could you tell me what your gender is, please?
Male?
And you had testified that you were the security director at CCI at the time of the escape, correct?
Yes.
Is the security director position an executive, a career executive position?
Yes.
And you were investigated for potential misconduct after the April 16, 2020 escape, correct?
Yes.
You were placed on administrative leave as a result of that investigation?
Yes.
You recall when that was?
It was 2 weeks after the escape, so I believe it was April 29th, give or take a day.
Okay. And you were investigated, obviously, for potential work rule violations related to the escape?
Yes.
And I think you testified that you were ultimately separated from the department as a result of that investigation?
Initially, yes.
Okay, but then you came back to the department, correct, at some point in time?
Yeah, I reached a settlement agreement through my appeal.
Okay. And you also testified that you had knowledge of these kitchen workers, Zimdahl, engaging in possible violations prior to the escape. Is that accurate?
We received information alleging that she was, yes.
What information did you receive?
It was one inmate brought
Sorry,
accusations.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Could you say that again, please?
We had one inmate that brought information forth that alleged misconduct.
Did you also have other kitchen workers who alleged misconduct?
No, not at that time, or not of my knowledge.
Not of your knowledge? Okay. And you also testified that when Ms. Novak informed Doug Percy of the concerns regarding Zimdahl, she just stated that there was possible fraternization between staff and inmate. Is that accurate?
Yeah. At that time, we had no knowledge or even any inkling of a potential escape until the day of the escape.
When you say we, you mean you, correct?
Me? Yeah, I had no knowledge of it.
Right. During the phone call, and I understand you only heard one side of the phone call, but during the phone call between Ms. Novak and Doug Percy, did Ms. Novak provide all the details that she was aware of, to at least your knowledge, of the concerns that she had with Ms. Zimdahl? Did she mention any surveillance videos, for example?
Not to my knowledge.
Did Ms. Novak mention the fact that balloons of marijuana were found in units 8 and 9 where the Payok kitchen workers were housed in the weeks prior to the escape?
I don't recall that.
And I just want to clarify this. I may have missed it, so I apologize, but I believe you testified that you were aware that the stun fence was improperly installed sometime in you became aware of it sometime in 2019, correct?
Yes.
And you informed the deputy warden of that fact,
Yes.
but you did not inform anybody else of that fact, correct?
No.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Are you aware of whether or not Ms. Novak knew of that fact?
I am not.
Okay.
That's
All I have.
Okay, 1 second. All right, go ahead. Do you have any redirect?
I do. So, are you aware of whether or not the position of warden, is held at a different level than position of, for example, security director?
Yes,
Okay. And what powers does the warden have over the institution?
they are designated as the appointing authority. They rule the roost, so to speak. I mean, it's their house, I guess. I don't know how else to explain that.
Okay, but they are able to ask for help based on your knowledge and experience?
Yes, the warden still has a boss that they report to.
Okay. And based on your knowledge and experience, the Department of Corrections also does independent reviews of security.
Yes,
Okay, and do you know whether or not those reviews are conducted at the institution level or above?
I'm going to object to vague. I'm not sure. There's a lot of different investigations that go on at the DOC.
Sure, that's what we talked about, reviews on security.
Okay, I don't know the difference between these different things, so can we latch on to something that's clear?
Sure. Are there, let me put it this way. Do you know whether or not the institution by itself could have repaired the fence?
no, the institution could not have done what needed to be done to that fence.
How do you
It's
know that?
the scope of it. For one, we do not have the staff to do that, and two, you're talking a major undertaking. Those are installed by fencing contractors when an institution is built or when they're installed. I know this in my past experience. We've had other institutions I've worked at have had that same fence installed. When we've had issues and things in the past, we've had to have the contractor who installed it come in and put that or make repairs to them.
Do you know what other institutions have had issues with that, the similar fence?
We I can speak to Red Granite Correctional Institution. We've had instances where one of my previous facilities that I worked at had that same type of stun fence, as it's called, and we've had some sort of technical issues with it where it required the installer to make repairs.
Okay. But and when you say installer, that's not Department of Corrections employees, it's somebody else?
Correct. It's outside contractor or vendor.
Okay. Um, okay. And do you recall if there was a lockdown at Columbia prior to the escape?
I'm going to object. We're outside the scope at this point.
Okay, well, where are we? What was the question, please?
Was there a lockdown at Columbia prior to the escape?
I don't know why we're talking about this.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gustke, I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, do you have any recross?
I do not.
I have a question. When I asked you about this worker issue, you testified in a way that made me believe that you actually had a conversation with Secretary Carr where he told you that the issue regarding the worker fraternization wasn't important, and whether or not in your defense wasn't important, and that he told you forget it, you're terminated. But now I'm not understanding that from you. I'm understanding that you're telling me this was all just by paper. Is that correct?
I never spoke personally to Secretary Carr other than his signature on my termination letter that I received. In regards to the investigation, he never spoke to me, never. I, in fact, never seen him, never came to the facility anytime that I was there.
And in his letter to you, did he specifically tell you that worker fraternization issue wasn't a big deal knowledge-wise, the way I understood you to be telling me that before, when you testified that he basically threw that away?
I can't, without looking specifically at my letter, I know for a fact in my termination letter, the fencing issue was utilized in my termination. And there was something along the lines of failure to report potential fraternization. I don't remember exactly what that was.
So
There was something.
my understanding of your prior testimony is incorrect. You did not have a personal conversation, and he didn't personally tell you that whole issue.
I never
regarding
said
the
I had a
fraternization
conversation with
wasn't
Kevin Carr. I
Okay.
never said I had a conversation with that man.
That's how I understood you to say it.
No,
So
no.
I just want to be clear, that didn't happen.
Nope.
Okay.
It's
good.
too much of a
All right.
color to come talk to me.
That's all my questions. Do you have any
Yeah,
questions on that,
I
Mr.
do.
Cross?
So I just want to be clear, because you it's not like you weren't without information on what Mr. Carr said. It's just that he didn't say things directly to you. Is that what that meant?
That man never spoke to me.
Okay, but you did review. I mean, did you get how do you understand him to have said those words that you had said before? How did you come to have that knowledge of those statements?
From my termination letter with his signature on it.
Okay, and then did he use those words, or is that an inference?
I guess what words are we specifically talking about?
That's fair enough. What I think the judge heard, and what I may have heard too, was statements along the line of whatever was told to Mr. Percy didn't matter.
My interpretation from what I read in my investigation packet was Doug Percy denied being made aware of the potential fraternization, which is a lie because he was made aware of it. And then that in turn was brought up, portions of it, I don't remember exactly how it was, but my alleged failure to bring information forward about the potential fraternization was referenced in my termination letter, as well as my failure to bring up the fencing.
Okay, and those, I mean, I think we're all clear now. And I just want to repeat it, just for the sake again of clarity, that what you were saying about Secretary Carr didn't believe that what Percy's knowledge mattered was an inference, meaning that you gathered that information together based on the facts that you described before, right?
I'm going to object, asked, and answered.
I think he did answer it, so let's move on.
Great.
He already
I
said
appreciate that clarification. There's no attempt to trick you. I just want to be clear on what was meant there. Great.
Okay. Is there any cross on that recross?
No, Judge.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Gustke. I appreciate you coming, and you can have a good day, I hope. And please don't talk about your testimony with anybody. We are going to be continuing on with this proceeding, and we don't want anybody else to start testifying in a different way because they've heard you talk about this proceeding. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. You can leave. Do you need help leaving? I can help you. All right. There you go.
Judge,
All right.
Mr. McCoutry.
Okay, yes, Mr. McCoutry is there. Is everybody okay to start with him, or does anybody need a break?
Judge, could I just take a 5-minute break? Not long.
Okay, take 5 minutes break and then come back. We'll go off the record.
Thank you.